Recorder turn up, thank you. It is Wednesday, May 21st, 6 p.m. I'm calling to order our normal monthly Board of Directors meeting for the Clear Creek Community Services District. Would you all rise and join us in pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we can start with Terry roll call.
Terry Lincoln.
Logan Johnston.
Scott McVeigh.
Beverly Fickus. Cam Beaver.
And Waterloo, Joe Manager.
Emily King, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. If anybody in the public has comments they'd like to make at this time that are not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Sandy, come on up.
Sandy Winters, Firewise Committee, we're gonna have a booth at the Strawberry Festival. Everybody's welcome to come by and visit, and we'll have some handouts. Thank you.
Question for you, Sandy, real quick, I'm sorry. Do you have it fully staffed? I know Dennis had sent me an email looking for people.
I haven't talked to him, I'm 10 to 12, I don't know for sure what the schedule's gonna be. We're going, I guess, 8 to 4.
Right, and I've got the farmer's market first.
The same thing. Well, you ought to get a big crowd.
Well, I don't know, they may be all at the Strawberry Festival. Anything else? If not, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that the board would like pulled out for any reason and for further discussion? Or are there any corrections to any of the items on the consent agenda?
Yes.
We got expected some stuff. Guys, let us know, I think we can make some changes if we want.
Well, the
Now's
whole,
the time.
so that whole April P&L just needs to be pulled, right? Is it completely incorrect?
For this packet, some of the stuff that we have is incomplete, we're working with what we have. And so we printed and got it on the agenda. We uploaded it to the website, so
We need an agenda.
Is that in that email you sent me?
no, that one, so
Got two.
with the bookkeeper, the turnover, we're kind of scrambling to log in places and pull reports without using it. We didn't have any instructions on how to do it, we just knew that the reports were there. So some of the fields were absent or left out for some reason. So I know that whether it was an amount on some reports or to who on another, some of it was incomplete. What we can do is suggest maybe including in the next meeting complete report at that time, because we have a CPA that has helped out as of yesterday and today, and that was the first time we've had some help with some of the bookkeeping moments that have fallen on me.
There was some issue also with the detail report, wasn't there? The bills paid in that. It seemed like.
I think that was the vendor was missing on those ones, so we had amounts, and then the vendors, like who.
No, okay, the transaction detail, the amounts aren't there.
Yeah, they're there. They're on a different page.
No, okay, I'm looking at this one.
Yeah,
It's itemized by who was paid, but it doesn't list.
yeah, they're here.
Oh, are they? Oh, okay.
Was it on the table?
Yeah, it's on a separate page. I'm used to seeing it on the same page.
Oh, it
so it's
wasn't
just
a
line by
landscape, it
line.
was a okay, it was on.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, sorry about that.
Any other questions on the consent agenda?
Well, I just want to make sure we pull
Yes.
activity P&L because we know it's incorrect. And then the amendment to the consulting service, that should be under the consent agenda? Is that not help me out?
I think what we were.
Yeah, it could be a discussion if you wanted the board to discuss it, but I figured it was a consent thing, because it's, it was for conflict of interest, it was the right thing to do, and we can talk about it if
Because you're suspending
Yeah.
the contract.
yeah. So
Not
all
canceling
work-
it, just suspending.
Yep, suspending.
You really okay with that?
Yeah, you corrected the date though, under the recital. You guys got my email, right? Okay.
So once it's posted, we couldn't change this,
Well, the first whereas shouldn't say may.
Oh, yeah, March, or
Feb-
February 28th, I think it was.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
February 27th.
So we can, with your direction, we can make that change and then execute the agreement.
Alright, so, I need a motion then to approve the consent agenda with the April P&L removed and the changes.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Alright, we have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda with the stipulation that the P&L be removed and that there were adjustments. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6, is that correct?
Yep.
Cross-connection control plan.
Okay. So this item, impacted, this cross-connection control plan is been before this board in April. And what the direction was at that time was to take it back and plug in all of the district specifics to the HydroCorp product, and so that's what we did. And accompanied with that, we have an ordinance that follows the plan and a update to the amendment to the rules and regulations. So attached are the sections for the rules and regs and the verbiage that was modified. And what we need to do is approve this so that we can submit that to the state.
Yeah, we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, we,
So internally, we reviewed the plan. We didn't have any changes to what was put together. Emily did a great job on that, and Paul, before he left, he actually had some of these other changes already ready to go. So he's working on this for some time. So this is the time where we're taking it forward for a formal approval.
any questions by the board?
Yes, yes.
Yes?
So, under the rules and regulations that is part of this being approved, gentlemen, or board, we need to go to section 4.1B. I'll try to find, I don't know where the heck it is, but it's under the rules and regs. And, because I just want to go over that. Should mark it there. 4.1B.
Right, plus additional fees was the language.
Mhm.
And
So, what, I just want to make sure that everyone was aware that that plus additional fees, so for the audience's sake, let me read this to you. I'm gonna read to you what it said without what we're planning on adding. For properties that have additional dwelling units, so any of those that have mother-in-law quarters or a second dwelling, and only 1 meter serving all dwellings, the district requires that the monthly base rate be paid for each dwelling on the premises. It never said anything about additional fees. So it says the monthly base rate. So when I read that, and of course I've read this dang document 2 or 3 times and I never caught it. So it's like everybody that's got a second dwelling is paying additional fees. I didn't trust the last board and the management. And so that just brings me, board, to a concern before we just willy-nilly add this in, that there might be some legal thing that they weren't supposed to. I just don't want to pass that on through without you guys knowing that. So now it's going to say that the monthly base rate plus additional fees be paid for each dwelling on the premise. And I wasn't sure if the fees, and I kind of worked it out a little bit with Scott, having a discussion on, these fees are actually property-related fees. It's the $7.55 to 38 cents. So it's not like they're not property fees, because those non-property fees can be upped at any time, these fees can't. They are set in stone. So that makes me think that it's okay to add that language, but because of past practices, I wanted some discussion, guys.
The other issue with it, if I can, was that at the last Prop 218, we memorialized those fees into the rates that we charge.
Correct, but this rules and regs did not have that in there, and everybody was paying it. Everybody was paying that second dwelling with the fees. Now, the monthly base rate, I went back and read minutes clear back to 1980, and trying to find this additional dwelling process, and to say, when did that occur that we started charging an additional base rate? That base rate has been there since back to the 80s. It was, the choice was require customers to put in a second meter or allow them to pay a second base rate. And the board at that time decided, pay a second base rate, that's cheaper for all the customers to do that way. So I'm okay with that. After I went back and researched it, because I wanted to make sure that we were legal and doing everything right. This additional fee thing is what bothers me. So
is that the amendment we need to make?
it says plus additional fees, it's not italicized, but that's the part that we're adding, we're voting on tonight with the cross connection, is in this rules and regs to add that piece of language in there.
I understand where you're coming from.
So,
Well, to me, it sounds clear, and because of the wording, I think we would be safe.
well, I guess just because it wasn't there before,
I agree.
and it says just monthly base rate, so, but was it just an oversight?
Do you think it should be spelled out now, or?
No, it is now, it
Yeah.
says
In
plus
the
additional, in this new one that we're gonna vote on, it says plus additional fees.
I think it was-
Everybody was paying it anyway, weren't they?
Yes,
They were, but you know how I am, we were being charged for things that we should never have been
Right.
charged for, so,
Would you wanna pay everybody back?
no.
Okay.
well, especially since,
But I think,
Prop 218.
to be honest with you, I think it was just an oversight because, most people aren't as thorough as you.
Yeah, for the public's information, at least 2 of the board members are in that situation, and we pay double the base rate, double the extra fees every month, and have for many, many years.
So,
Okay. Any other
okay,
comments from board members? No? From the public? Oh,
Yeah, years ago, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Do me a favor, speak up so we can get you on the recording, please.
Years ago, everybody was just paying $75 a year. And then because the meters did not record every flow, just the large flows would go through those meters. The little ones, hoses, household, wouldn't record, they wouldn't spin those little dials. So they come up with a domestic charge at first, $4.80 a month. And that was quite fair because we were all using the water and, we were getting it for free. And then every January we'd have to pay, if we had, used $75 worth of water, we had to pay a little extra. And that was okay too, because we did use that much water. We were all using ditch and flood irrigation. We didn't have drip lines and all this
Yeah.
PVC stuff. And, so it was, all of a sudden it evolved into an M&I rate, $4.87. And then they had the ag fee. Now that all come together over the years, different situations, until we had a base rate. I can't remember the exact year that they did it. I might have it in my history at home, but, it started out pretty cheap.
Things were cheap then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Robert?
Are the fees of which you're speaking, those relatively minor fees that go on top of the base rate that bring it up to about $70, something like that?
The additional fee is $10.81.
yeah, all those fees,
And those
yes.
are debt sort that we owe for?
Yes,
We owe for bonds or what?
and they're itemized. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think there are any bonds, they were loans,
Loans,
most of them were loans.
Great.
So for Director Fickus, are you suggesting that maybe some clarity on the plus additional fees as adopted? or do you want any sort of clarity to that? Or-
No, I just wanted it I just wanted to make sure the board knew, yeah, that it wasn't there before, and yet everybody was being charged. And it's just the history of what we found when we started investigating this district leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. So I just wanna make sure that, you know, that we're not passing stuff without full,
Disclosure.
yeah, or.
Transparency.
So, if everybody's good with that, I'm fine with that, I just wanted people to know.
Yeah, we had another fee called Fish and Wildlife, it's not on there anymore, but it was part of our original billing.
That is true. But coming back to the board, any other comment or questions on this, the ordinance and the change to the, regulations? Rules and regulations.
Do we need to vote on it?
I
We
moved that-
will in a minute.
are we ready?
No, I wanna know if you guys have any other comments or questions.
Yeah.
I have no comment.
No, me either.
No.
I move to accept ordinance 2025-04 cross-connection control plan and approve the updated or amended rules and regulations for water service.
I appreciate that. A point of clarity, can we do both in one motion?
Yes, you can.
Very good.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the cross-connection control plan and the change to the rules and regulations. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, motion adopted.
Thank you. And the next item here, number 7, is interim general manager check signer. So on April 25th is when I started. And, you know, as part of the transition, it's standard practice for the GM to have the ability to sign as a backup, authorized signer. So this is basically recommendation of the board to add me as a check signer and authorize necessary banking documentation to update the account signers accordingly.
Any questions, comments by anybody? There's no motion needed, it's just a vote.
Okay, well, it says action.
Yes, but that's just, the action will be us voting to approve to add him as a signer.
Do you know if we all are gonna have to go back down to the bank?
I don't think so. I think they need it in the minutes, put it in the minutes, and then we can make the changes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Well,
Was
the
it
vote, the vote, not the motion, thank you.
So for the next item, discussion and possible action regarding formation of a personnel committee. So this item is preventing the board to discuss and consider the formation of a personnel committee as a standing committee of the board. If formed, the committee would assist in matters related to staffing, labor, compensation, evaluations, policy, and organizational structure. We can provide direction or take formal action to establish a committee and appoint 2 directors to serve. For some background, I know that there used to be a personnel committee here, and I think a couple of years ago it went away. I'm not familiar with the reason why, but, you know, personnel matters are a critical and ongoing area for the district, and, you know, oversight and governance, and I think, you know, the committee would provide a structured and consistent venue for reviewing staffing needs and organizational changes, overseeing recruitment and hiring processes for the key positions, and conducting general manager evaluations and contract matters, as well as reviewing personnel policies and procedures, and providing input on compensation studies, benefits, and labor-related issues. So there's kind of a fine line on how the board can get involved on the confidential personnel matters, but these are definitely the areas that the board can make decisions for the district. And there's definitely, I think, in my opinion, there's a good interest here to affect some change. And we're recommending that, my recommendation is take this forward for that consideration. But the scope has to be clear. That's the important part for this legally. And so if the board decides, what it must do is identify the scope and purpose, confirm it's a standing committee, meets regularly with an ongoing purpose, appoint 2 directors to serve as members, and then direct staff to agendize and notice committee meetings in accordance with the Brown Act. So there's not any fiscal impact at this time, but our staff time will be absorbed within the existing budget.
Very good. Comments or questions by the board?
I think it would help, maybe not get rid of some of the work, but at least help, the office and the general manager to, lighten a little bit of their load.
And if I may add to that, I think from the perspective where I'm sitting and seeing things objectively, I think it's an important opportunity, especially with a Prop 218, coming, where this committee can inform some important changes that may need to be considered for, future adoption of new rates. So not just the capital outlay, but maybe there'd be some organizational changes and positions. And I think that this committee would inform the board on those important changes. That's kind of how I see it.
Sounds good. Any other comments?
I don't see the need in it personally. I think we got rid of it for a reason, because it wasn't being, we can't do anything for personnel. You're the only personnel we have, and I think that's why we got rid of it before, because we couldn't do anything. The planning and steering reviews the, was it the
Growth and projections.
yeah.
So one of the old, board of directors, it was, the subcommittee definitions, and this is dated January 2017. The Personnel Committee, a committee that aids in contract negotiations, renewal between the district and the CCEA, that was the kind of the local union that they had, provides insight to the general manager regarding personnel issues. I think we need it. I know we're pushed with who's gonna man that subcommittee, but, I like how you've explained what your vision is, and it just needs to be written up in that manner. I think we need a little bit of oversight, and I don't necessarily mean control, because that's not what that committee would do as far as control things, but it's a little bit of oversight. We lost that completely when it got taken away.
What oversight? Oversight of what? We have one employee.
No, because it's the oversight of the whole district. Just because we have one employee doesn't mean we don't look at everything. Some, let's say maybe we're reviewing something with the personnel. Maybe we need to go in, the personnel committee has to go in and look at certain processes. And then we report that to the general manager, that this process maybe needs to be improved upon.
Or you bring it back to the board for discussion.
Right, you bring it back to the board for, we can bring it back and trial and error, see if we wanna get rid of it again. I like it. I don't know if I wanna be on the standing committee.
That's gonna be the problem. I don't wanna be on it either, so.
To the chair, I think to add a little bit, I wasn't a fan of it at first, but given, some of the turnover and some of the concern inside, internally, I think, finding ways for staff retention, listening to staff and seeing what's important to them, putting some plans together, because some of these things are gonna have a fiscal impact at some point. And I think it's more about the process, and also, I think it's an opportunity for the board to get a little bit more intimate on some of the daily stuff that staff does, so you can kind of feel the pain. And so it's a recommendation of maybe looking at, do we change anything, or do we add a position? Do we do a parity study for retention? Where are we at compared to others? It involves those kinds of things. And for, how important I know it is for the board, for the personnel retention, it may be a mechanism to lean on.
Any other comment from the board?
I think those are your jobs, not ours.
Yeah, I understand. And I agree with trust, remember, I'm in the room, and I wanna,
Yeah, we have an HR person and a manager, and
That's the kind of stuff that you should be bringing to the board, not us. We can't go in and review and talk to the employees. That's not legal.
Nope.
So that could get us in more trouble than, we can get in on our own.
Director Johnson, any comments?
I think there could be surveys that could dance around that requirement about contact with employees, but I think surveys can answer some questions.
No other comment? Any comment from the public? No comment from the public either.
Logan, you don't have said your two bits worth.
I think there was some pretty passionate discussion about this after the conclusion of the April meeting. And I'm a little interested how the outside perspective might be on that, because there's a position taken by the previous general manager on a matter that would probably fall under the scope of what would be this personnel committee. And the opinion taken there was that this would be actively intruding in the responsibilities and job duties of a general manager. That's one man's opinion. I'm not saying that I don't see this as being potentially beneficial given the problems that we do have with turnover, retention, and culture.
That was a very specific issue, and that will not be part of this personnel committee vote. Because when they get written up, how the scope, that won't be part of it.
And you will define very narrow parameters of what the committee can do.
Okay. So when you look at the background, bullet point 2, overseeing recruitment and hiring processes for key positions, scratch that.
Well, what will happen, the way my vision is that that's an idea that Jim put down, but what it is that scope or the role of that is going to be hashed out and then brought to the board. And then if anything's on there that we don't like, then yes, scratch it out.
Okay.
So, yeah, that one was, when I saw that, was a little iffy.
That is stepping on a general manager's toes.
Yeah.
But I think that we all benefit from one another's views, and I think that, we can't, do what the GM is supposed to, but we can benefit from having other views brought up that helps them have, maybe, sometimes you get so focused on something, you can't see the, we trees.
Yeah, forest for the trees.
Yeah,
Yes.
forest through the trees. Sometimes we need, and maybe we don't agree with it, but at least we've heard it.
Right. Well, I can appreciate that.
Any other comments? No? This is a discussion and action, so I think for us to form a committee, we would have to have a motion and a second.
I move that we have a personnel committee, a standing committee.
I second that motion.
With a motion and a second to form a personnel committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
1,
2.
Okay. Motion carries 3-2. But we'll need to report back to the full board what the scope is
Right.
specifically. And if the board votes and no, we don't want that in there, then that should be,
So we'll take that out.
That would take it out,
We'll appoint
yes.
2 directors at that point.
Yeah, when we appoint 2 directors.
uh,
At the next meeting?
we could do it now, since we have voted to do this.
Okay.
So, who volunteers?
I'll volunteer.
All right. Am I to assume that no one on my right is volunteering? I have to ask.
Yeah. This is gonna have to be something where you have to be here during business hours, and I can't.
I understand that,
Yeah.
that's a fair point. Without a second volunteer.
My volunteer work,
is
yeah.
struck.
I'll volunteer if you're not gonna volunteer.
Well, no, I will. You've already indicated you don't wanna do it.
Yeah, well, it's not that
I don't wanna control everything here,
so
but
what,
I'm willing to help.
can we talk, planning and steering is Pam and
Terry.
Terry. And, ag is Scott
Logan.
and Logan. And those are the only three we have, right?
Yeah,
So.
finance you had. right?
Yeah, finance, you and me. So then we.
Centerville.
Oh, Centerville.
Centerville's ad hoc. We'll
Centerville.
probably do an ad hoc
Yeah.
for the Prop 218.
So Centerville is Pam and I, and then we have personnel. So,
I'm already on 2 of the 4.
okay, and I'm only on 1, so there we go, Pam and I. Pam's on 3 and I'm on 3, and, okay,
All agreed?
you need a motion?
I think we should.
Yeah.
Does the board approve Directors Beaver and Fickus on the planning committee for
Yes.
personnel? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And there we go. It's 4. General Manager's report.
All right, so over the past 3 weeks, what I've been focusing on is, of course, the onboarding and meeting with staff, understanding the day-to-day operations. My primary goal has been to listen, assess, and support the team during this transitional period. And I definitely want to take a moment real quick just to thank staff for their openness to to talk with me and to help me get up to speed, get me quickly oriented into the ongoing priorities of the district, and learned quite a bit in a short amount of time. It was very educational for me. I've got a really profound respect for all of the staff and what they do, and a lot of the history was really important for me to understand, and some of the grind that they deal with, and some of the resource hogs, if you will, learning what those are, and that's why, I think when, the personnel committee is looking at overall organizational needs, I think, that personnel committee will help with that. But there are some needs here that I think are kind of absorbed and are, maybe there's some shuffling of what position does what. Like, for example, the admin assistant is doing the HR piece, and there's got to be a clear job description of that. And so some things are less clear and we're absent, and so it's been amazing to watch staff handle things on the distribution, the treatment. I took a tour of the water treatment plant, and I got to watch Bill just explain everything he knows about that plant. It was amazing to me, his knowledge, and I'm incredibly impressed with his level of knowledge and understanding. I also, conducted some various site visits. I did that with Paul when I was brought on for the grants, and but I did also meet with our district engineer, Pace Engineering, and we reviewed some current projects and some capital planning efforts. I think that we need to formalize some of our plans moving forward, and so I'll be working on shaping a clear picture for that in the district, as well as the grants that will be pursued for that. And sometimes there's a match, and so I would be helping find the finance path as well for that. Internal process review, I've just been reviewing internal administrative processes, the budget timelines, and some compliance responsibilities. Water definitely has various compliance elements to it. Still getting up to speed with that, but there's no immediate changes being proposed for anything. I think we have a pretty good tight ship, and so I'm just working on identifying opportunities to improve workflow and find efficiencies. Maybe working on some documentation and some interdepartmental communication, because our staffers in various spots. But learned a lot in the recent staff meeting too, where everybody had a lot of feedback. They engaged that staff meeting. As far as the budget and financial oversight, I know that the budget process has, we've had several meetings, but it's also still ongoing because, you know, there's some reconciliation items that remain in progress. So following the turnover of the bookkeeper position, you know, I'm still trying to find a couple of things that are gonna be important for the site picture for next fiscal year. And, we had one thing that we mentioned on the previous meeting of the RCDC interest, so we gotta make sure that that's in the budget. But, you know, we are on track with bringing forward a draft in June as previously scheduled. We have to have a budget hearing prior, or actually we'll do it in the same meeting, we'll pause the regular and go into a budget hearing. And then, following that, we can adopt the next year's budget. But, some additional financial review is still kind of needed right now, because I just want to make sure I understand a couple more things that I don't have the information yet. And so the assistance from the external CPA firm is helping with that, so we're on day 2 with that help. So personnel, you know, there's some internal personnel things under my review, and we have an item here for closed session. And, you know, I'm looking at district policies, and that's another thing that I think the committee and board is absolutely has the authority for, is those policies, and I think some of them, you know, could be updated, but we need to put them all in one spot and just make sure that if we have an old version, anything we bring forward will maybe just supersede any old versions that may be out there, but there are some policies I think that we need to make sure we have, and I haven't found them yet. So I think there's one more thing here for so in the coming weeks, what I hope to do is continue to meet with our partner agencies and stakeholders. I had a meeting with Supervisor Kellstrom about utilizing the county as a pass-through agency for CDBG funds, grant funds. And there could be, you know, we bounced off some ideas from Pace Engineering on if we were able to get some grant funds, can we place some strategic valves so that when we have, you know, breaks and interruptions, that we would not be shutting off half the district. We can actually isolate it to our zones. So if we can get some CDBG funds for that, we can drop them in key spots. Or it could be a PRV or air relief valve, you know, so that we can protect that infrastructure. But doing that, I think, would be an important step so that we're not impacting, you know, during those times where, you know, we're essentially getting into that season where we're going to start seeing more of those repairs being needed. So if we had some extra valves that we know work, we can utilize those to do quicker repairs and less impact while we're doing the long capital plan before those things happen. So I think we would utilize those for probably a good 2 years at least, and so they would have value. But whatever grant we go for, it probably isn't going to be system-wide. It would have to be a zone or so if we have to face funding. But having those valves, I think, is going to be really important for staff, and the downtime, having to drain all the water lines in order to make the repairs, it would be a lot smaller. But there's a lot of value in having those shut-offs so that we're not, you know, exercising some valves that are, you know, once you disturb it, could end up having the problem itself. So they seem receptive, especially since I said I will do all the work. And so, because it's extra work for them as a pass-through agency. But they were open to that, and there should be some more discussions to follow. Again, I'm evaluating organizational structure and role clarity, and I just think it is a little bit more needed there, not much. I think we have a lot, I'm still assessing some needs and listening to staff. Because there's changes in software and how things have moved from one desk to another have occurred, and so I'm just kind of studying that, listening, and seeing if I can put together a good proposal to address some of the needs. And of course, you know, we have the ongoing recruitment for permanent GM, so just supporting that effort is to the extent that I can. And I wanted a note here just to say, you know, thank you for the opportunity for me to serve in this role during a critical time setting a foundation for long-term stability.
Any questions? If no one else does, I have a couple. Can you
And I
give
do,
us
have an operations report for admin, treatment, and,
Oh, I thought-
restoration. So I have more, yeah.
Thank you. Please go into those.
Okay. For administration, I'm just kind of following a process that we've had. So there's 203 accounts that are, over 121 days arrears.
That wasn't in our packets though?
No, it wasn't, because a lot of the reports, I'm used to being oral, but if you want to see those in there, we can. Yeah, so I kept it more as oral, but I can certainly do that for the next meeting. But,
I like it, you guys like it, yeah.
Yeah,
okay, and we'll make sure that, the minutes will actually have the same, format, so we'll make sure that the next meeting will have it in advance. So as far as the accounts 91 to 120, we have 131, and 61 to 90 is 230, and then 31 to 60 is 448. Now, all of this is less than the previous month, so there has been some improvement. And so, in total, we're shy of about 114,000 in accounts receivable. And so,
and how much of that is long-term?
for long term, 76,000.
So the majority.
Let's see.
One of our goals with changing, computer programs is that the new program would allow us to see what is long-term, what is really we need to get off the books right off. And that we've been talking about it.
Establishing that process for that, exactly, and following through on the collections and liens and things, and that is something that I actually was, looking to pursue that information and that process, and I was gonna kind of rip off and duplicate something I've done elsewhere,
Yeah.
but, some of the, my time has been pulled away from proposing some solutions, or, at least talking about some of my findings.
Something, if I can interrupt, as far as the long-term, I know what we want, and I know we've discussed this in the past, is looking at putting liens on the property. We won't get the money right away, but if that property ever sells, then that money plus interest over the years, and the county usually tracks that on their, it can even go on a property tax bill, so.
Right, absolutely.
It is an avenue of recapturing that money.
At least we get something.
Yeah.
Let's see, so the water treatment, this one I actually have, some pretty good information I wanted to share. I just thought it was important for, the neighbors and the board. So Bill's numbers here, again, this is, numbers that I'll make sure are in the packet next time. But the treatment plant produced 221 acre-feet of surface water. Clear Creek used 135 acre-feet of surface water in April, and 130 of that was M&I and 5 was ag, and 227 surface water for WY 2526. Does that mean I didn't ask
Water year?
Yeah,
water. Okay, that makes sense. Fiscal year. Thank you.
How many acre feet
That one is 227.
for the current water year? So this year to date.
That's as of,
No,
March.
That's
March first.
Yeah.
The Bureau of Reclamation runs us. from March
Okay,
1st
sorry,
to
my
February.
reporting interval's October. to-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, a lot of stuff is, but. the Bureau
That doesn't
just-
seem right though. You've got March and April, the last month was 221. I guess it's possible.
That would have been a Salt Centerville and. 137 plus what, about 85?
I see what you're saying.
That would have equaled about the 220 or whatever.
I may not have the full packet from last month, but I'm so sorry. I did part of it. So. So staff has been busy with routine maintenance, so there's been a lot of monitoring of, some conditions down there, or out there. And Whiskey Town Lake is beginning to fill for the year, and the board is, the Bureau is, beginning the first of 2 pulse flows on May 16th. So that's already.
Yep.
So, pulse flows have a negative impact on the water treatment plant, and we're producing, 5 million gallons.
Can I ask, is that the plant's production? So,
That's the
portion 35% of that is Centerville.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the backwater pond repair project, pond 3 is online, and work has begun on the perimeter French drains. The work in pond 2 will begin in June, and, once the sludge finishes drying. And the treatment staff has completed cleaning the filters to the waste pond, and this takes place twice a year. And the staff have also completed pressure washing outside of the filters, and that task helps protect the exterior coating. Staff has also replaced 4 foot of pipe that burst in November, and this project included 2 12-inch valves and a new electronic actuator. Train number 6 remains offline, and the valves locked out. This is due to damaged media, bed, sand in the under drain system, and leaking control valves. And another thing that Bill reported was back in October, staff had discovered a leak in the main, in the 12-inch pipe of the main building. This section of pipe was new in 1976 and is used for backwash recycled water to backwash recycled water out of the ponds. A wrap style fitting was used as emergency repair, and a welder was scheduled a few days later to add attach over the hole. The permanent fix was to replace the section of pipe with special order piece. And that project was completed last week. When the section of pipe was removed, corrosion was discovered in the next set of 12-inch fittings. And these fittings cannot be replaced in-house due to the size and the weight. It can be assumed that all of the pipe from 1976 has experienced corrosion beyond repair and will need to be addressed. It's recommended by PACE to replace all of the 1976 pipe and valves along with replacing the filters. So today, what was done, some work was a weld split on another section of 1976 pipe and was repaired using a temporary fitting. And this is an 18-inch diameter pipe that is 15 feet long and 12 feet in the air. And if I heard it right, you would have to remove the roof of the building to replace it. And so we're shifting away from replacing the valves and pneumatic actuators in this area due to the amount of corrosion being discovered. So I think that's an important preservation piece, but the conditions that we're noting, are going to inform that formal capital plan that I would like the district to advance. So trying to triage the projects, treatment and distribution, and just being fully aggressive with as much grant applications as we can get. So, and again, that capital outlay, it will inform any sort of rate studies and stuff in order to finance anything if that's even needed. But hopefully there's some 100% funding out there.
Yes.
So I think, the assessments and the judgment of staff, I think those are appropriate, given the conditions so that we're not disturbing something. But there is a leak right now that they've observed and they're monitoring that right now.
So basically, these repairs go way beyond the budget that was established for the water treatment plant for O&M. So we're gonna either have to come up with grants or funding for multiple things at the water treatment plant.
It was an important discovery, and I'm glad it wasn't made worse. And I think that is, what we have working in our favor right now, so I think quick action to put a plan together is something I hope to report on for next month. At least the path.
One of the things that Beverly and I, when we met with Centerville, important too, that when you come up with the plan or whatever happens, you and Bill, we've gotta make Centerville aware of it, because they're gonna pay for it too. And so if we're making them aware of it the whole time, it'll be less devoted, and the men on their board are excellent people. I think by us showing them the respect that it's coming.
We have common objectives, but yes, so that's, thank you for that. I hadn't looked at that yet, and that's actually, I'm sure that they actually, Bill does a great job of keeping in contact with them, but I'll verify that that has taken place so that they're informed of, changes to any sort of plan.
I think that there were much more, that hasn't always been the best of relationships, so I think it's important that it come from you.
And then lastly, the distribution operations report. So Morgan reports that leaks have slowed down the last couple of months, but she expects that that this will pick up because of the weather drying out and the ground shifting and shrinking. We've had service line leaks on Flowers Lane and Fuzzy Lane, and have done some curb stop repairs. So we can lock customers off for large unpaid bills. Meter reading, significant progress with our meter register replacement. And some of these efforts are still moving forward. There was some older meters that have actually aged out, like a big chunk of them this month for some reason. And so they're working on some of the new additions there to the plan together. So there's manual readings at this point. We have cut our labor time for this meter reading even more than last month due to the replacement of older non-functioning transmitters. Training and development, so her team has actively participated in Department of Transportation training sessions, the SCADA training, and monthly GPIA training. And staff have also provided updated training on the equipment for operations and maintenance to both new and existing employees. Water samples have been taken on May 6th with everything back, all the results coming back with absent, so it's good, no negative results. Maintenance and repairs, they've assisted some repairs on Coyote Lane after a water main break that washed some of the road out from new and old main line breaks. And they're working with customers to make the road acceptable. And we are paving actually June 3rd, a lot of the deferred paving jobs of the leaks in the past. So we're finally scheduling that now that weather is dried out and we got on their schedule. So we're looking at June 3rd. And so the
Who's
roads,
doing it?
I don't have who is doing that, but the roads that we're doing are Sunset Drive, Fortune Way, Strawberry Lane, and Lansing Drive.
Well, we used to have Axton do it, and they were terrible.
Yeah.
It's not Axner.
Is it Sunrise?
Yeah.
That's what I asked, Axton did two different repairs, and the road just sunk. And
They
we
didn't
had,
come back like they were
and they
supposed
didn't
to.
come back and fix it, they made us fix it. So we had, and so we adopted something where we have to get bids.
Well, we have a compactor, I believe.
They also have sheets of it.
So,
Okay. That's why it was.
I'm gonna ask some questions about that. So let me see what I can do to improve these conditions.
Morgan was right on, and she's the one who made sure that we can get Axton back in it. So she's really a really great supervisor.
Yeah, she genuinely cares and she rolls her sleeves up and she works really hard. So with that concludes my oral report. Did you have, Chair, any questions?
I was about to ask if the board members had any questions.
I don't.
Nothing?
No.
One question, is there any resolution to that extraction pump on the back trailer? It was not working well?
Yes, they did find a blower motor issue, and they actually found, I don't know how this happened, but there's a very similar motor that came back to their shop that wasn't used. It was a backup, and it could be used. So the blower motor actually had failed on us.
Right.
So they are working with us on, either replacing that, if they can't get the replacement, if they can't get it back in operation, we do have the option to get our money back.
Very good.
The other option, we are still waiting for the title, for some reason that's taking a little bit of time. So that's another concern of mine, and we're watching, but we're told that it's possible to get that. But the option that we could have is to keep the trailer and find out what parts are needed, and we'll cover the parts, not the labor. And so
Okay.
that's something that's being negotiated right now. So we're just getting a quote to see what it's gonna take to restore that. And my suggestion to Morgan is before we make any decision, we would test it out and make sure that it's functioning as appropriate. But, we got it, and it seemed to be working, but not at full power, and it just seemed to, get less and less. So we're gonna continue to explore options for that, because that's an important piece of equipment that staff really enjoyed.
Very good. Anything else? Then let's move on to standing committee reports. Dr. Johnson?
Have we scheduled our next ag committee?
I do not believe we
I believe
have.
we're
You
looking
have.
for the fall. I know I have this, because I was not there. I think I left my phone in the car. So, we discussed trying to get Dr. Audra Harrell, in here probably September, once things are starting to cool down a little bit. And
Okay.
I think I'll reach out to her and we'll try and pick a date in the coming months to get that done, see what her availability looks like, and then come back to the ag committee.
All right. Anything to report on the farmer's market?
Well, that was gonna be my next and final. We had our first farmer's market of the year 2 weeks ago.
On the 10th.
On the 10th. And sounds like we had a pretty decent turnout for our first of the year. Next farmer's market is this coming weekend, the 27th, the 7th, 24th, my goodness, what? 26th is Memorial Day, that's what I'm picturing of. Anyway, 24th is the second farmer's market of the season, 7 a.m. to 11 at Bonnie's Burgers. 8 to 11, we changed that. Anyway, great, this has been a great update.
I'm here to support.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyway,
Just read what I write.
give me a teleprompter right there.
And how often will the farmer's markets take place?
Every second and fourth Saturday of the month through through October. So please join us every second and fourth Saturday of the month through the month of October for the Happy Valley Farmers Market.
And for those watching the YouTube, if you live out here and you grow, make, or produce product, you're welcome to be a vendor there. Right next to Bonnie's Burgers on Palm Avenue.
$10 a month or $10 every time you go?
$10 a visit. The vendors had a meeting and approved that for additional signage and whatnot. Finance Committee, Director Fickus.
So our last finance committee was prior to last board meeting in April. So any adjustments then that you're looking at on the budget, are you anticipating maybe a finance committee meeting prior to our approval in?
I was just talking to the chair about that today, and I think that's something we'll be looking at probably tomorrow morning to see what things schedule.
Okay, and then, so the public hearing, which is really interesting, everything I had read said 30 days. You guys, he said 10 or 14.
That's all 14.
And I just looked it up now, and it's California code, before the meeting started, and it does say 10 days.
Yeah.
So, that just doesn't seem right to me, but I may have to do a little more reading, but that was the California code, so that's gotta be what it is.
Did you
So,
think it was 30?
I did.
Still has to be in the newspaper though.
Sure, yeah, so, that's the finance update is for now. Hopefully, we'll have the budget hopefully for approval in June.
Director Lincoln, Planning and Steering.
Nothing, we haven't had a meeting or nothing to report.
All right. Any board member items?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
No one else spoke up, so.
Okay, so, I got 3 things. Audits, have we heard anything from that company?
Yeah, so we have a draft audit, and we also sent it off to our CPA and this is the 2023 audit. I'm looking at it right now and still have, this is where I'm at, with the audit, and I haven't seen any glaring issues, you know, but I've still got to complete that review. I know next month, I think we will, we can accept that audit, and then once we do, we can start working on the 2024. So I think we're on track for that one. I think with the CPA present now is a bit to schedule. You know, I want to try to find some availability from them, and that will inform the finance meeting, and also in discussion will be the audit as well, comments. Because I want to try to get on the calendar when we get their feedback.
Yeah.
Let's follow up on that. When we originally contracted with them, they were gonna have 2 audits, I believe, done by the end of this fiscal year. Is that still gonna happen?
I think we will, I heard the same thing, so by the end of June, we could be, you know, provided there's no major issue here, I think we could, if anything, come up behind.
Good. And will you be able to use those audits for the reconciliation with Centerville? Because typically, the reconciliation doesn't happen until we have the audit.
So that yeah, that's important, because Centerville won't pay if there's more that they need to pay. They kind of hold out until they get that reconciliation, which is not in the contract. Once we read the contract, there was nothing in there that said you had to have that, but they were very insistent that they wanted that. So that will be added to it, because it's like, when we do a year in, that should be good enough, but because of past problems, that's not good enough for them, so. Okay, item number 2, I'll send you an email tomorrow, Jim, in regards to the policies. When we were having past problems, the Happy Valley Community Committee asked for a lot of documents, so I have a lot of documents on my iPad. So if there's policies, if you can give me a list of policies, I may have them.
Okay, that's
Okay.
great. Yeah.
So I may have them. Okay, so the last thing is, I thought this was gonna be put in the packet, because I brought it to Emily on Friday. But, no?
Your email you're talking about.
No, the report. I attended the Aqua JPIA Spring Membership Summit. I'm the representative for JPIA, which is our Joint Power Insurance Agency or association. A couple of the things that were important that I'll just kind of highlight, because I had a whole big page. But the state of the market took a downturn to the benefit of members. And even though California wildfires impacted California, the impact to commercial market was okay. So we weren't affected. They have been negotiating for an insurance decrease, but so far there's been a 15% increase every year, which contradicts the state of the market. So we're kind of fighting with them with that. They have a new software system to manage individual members' building structures and equipment, and it will not really take effect until 2026, but it lists all of the things that are insured, and it's just better tracking for them in the membership. They did a lengthy review of earthquake coverages, and I'm not going into that. Somebody had recommended that we have insurance for aging infrastructure. And that was kind of pretty fastly shot down because there's no way that everybody has aging infrastructure. It was like, okay, yeah. So that would increase everybody's insurance premiums on everything. So that was iterated. Acts of God, not aging. So the fire was like an act of God, and so we could get some funding for that. They bought a new building. So they have been buying buildings and spending lots of money. So they now have a 50,000 square foot building for 62 employees. And
there is where you're
for $8 million. Their current building, which was I think 16,000 square foot, they're thinking of just leasing it out, but make more money over time. But they'll decide that. the 50,000, they only think they're gonna need 25,000, and they're gonna rent out some of the other buildings for things. They do have a department that handles training for tech support, so I don't know if we have utilized that. I know we have our own computer gurus, or that we contract out with, but, you know, that might be a good avenue for us, since we use an outside source now. It might be something that, I don't know that we have to pay more, or if it's just a service that they provide. Okay, so on day 2, they had a lot of theft of equipment, and they're using AirTags now. So they were actually able to retrieve equipment that had AirTags on it. There was a couple of instances. So, you know, if we ever got another side-by-side or something like that, maybe an AirTag would have been a good thing. They've also had rear-end accidents, and now they have, and these are different groups, different districts, water districts. They have put up reflector tapes on the back of every one of their vehicles, so as a safety measure. And, you know, when Bill was rear-ended last year, or whenever that was, you know, that might be something that might be of benefit. There are risk control grants for security lights and cameras, so that was worth looking into. Citrus Heights is working on replacing 70% of their lines, and they've upped their yearly reserves to try to help towards that goal. They've got lots of money down there, so, but they started a CAC, a CAC, Community Advisory Committee, with 20 community members, with accountants and engineers and that, and it's to tackle some of these issues with their infrastructure. So, you know, they said start with purpose and structure well, so that was a really good session that they had with that. I'm not part of the Aqua, the Aqua portion was Wednesday through Friday, and that cost $800 and some odd just to register. So the JPIA is $85, so that was good. So that was my report. Okay.
Thank you. Any other member items or member items?
Nope.
Final comments from the public?
Beverly, I think where you're at is with the thinking of the 30 days is the Prop 218 public notice for when we're actually doing a fiscal or the 5-year water plan.
That's
not
45.
45. Well, holy Christmas, where the
I
heck?
don't know where the 30 days came from.
Never mind.
I read it somewhere on this, maybe it was for a different application, not for the budget.
Okay, at this time, we'll be going into I'm sorry, Sandy, go right
I
ahead.
think that was the most complete report I ever heard out of that yearly convention that they have. We've had board members that said, no, we're not gonna go because we won't benefit anything from it. So we didn't even take part then. We had other board members that just went for the vacation.
Yep, we did.
Yeah.
That is true.
So that
Yes,
was very
Robert.
good. You brought out a lot of really interesting points.
Yeah, yep.
I just want to say ditto, I really understood all that, and I don't always understand, but I really understood what you said, so ditto.
So pursuant to a government code, I'm not gonna read it because I don't have my glasses on. We're going into a closed session to discuss some public employee items. So with that, the meeting is adjourned into closed session. It is 8:18 Wednesday evening. We're reconvening in closed session. No action has been taken, but we do have 2 items to report. Our interim general manager will update us on.
Don't put this
I
in
wouldn't
there.
have said a name, but.
I agree.
So-
Maybe we can
Just
just
back
that off the recording. Thank you, Caitlin, please.
So I'll read off the.
Caitlin, you're not on, right?
Oh, I am. I can edit it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you turn that on?
Yes, it's on.
In accordance with government code, are we doing, let's see, first we have the GM, right? Did I have that?
Yeah,
So should we do that one first?
that's bad.
Okay. I'll do the second one. So in accordance with government code 54957.1, the following action taken in closed session is reported reported out as the board met in closed session to discuss public employee discipline pursuant Government Code 54957B1. And the board voted 5-0 to approve a settlement agreement resolving all claims with a distribution operator who has been on inactive status. Under the terms of the agreement, the employee will be reinstated. The district makes no admission of wrongdoing. A mutual release of all claims was executed, and the settlement does not include any financial payment. And the second item, the board met in closed session to conduct interviews and discuss the appointment of a general manager pursuant Code 54957B1. The board did not take reportable action. However, the interview process will continue to a second interview.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
next week.
8:19, meeting adjourned.